Hello, we are back again. It is Dave and Pat from The Wave, as you can see right here. And we have had a fantastic week. I saw that the blog website that we featured on one of our past episodes was getting a lot of love because we mentioned it, which is great. We've had honestly a great time watching the community kind of grow and the way things are going with basically this whole podcast. You guys have been awesome and we really appreciate it. As you can see, Dave is wearing a Starfish R Jerks t-shirt today because he's changing it up constantly. And yeah, it's funny that you were wearing that because I have to say I've been on a fishing kick recently. I've been watching fishing videos. I got the new app, Fish Brain. I've been trying to keep track of like where the best fishing spots are. I'm like, well, I moved out to like farm country, so like there's rivers here, and now I'm like looking for all the fishing spots on my way home, and like I just feel like I'm like too into it right now. But
So for anyone who doesn't know, originally I'm from the Northeast as well. I'm from Philly originally, and now living in Colorado, it's definitely a little different being completely landlocked to a point. I still find time to get out in the water, but it's not quite the same as having the ocean available.
well, you know what's cool is the Fishbrain app has communities on it, like group chats, and one of them is for automotive. And I posted the podcast in there, and we got a lot of love. There's a lot of people that liked it, so I told them that I would do a shout out for the community. So,
Hell yeah.
um, so yeah, really into fishing right now. I can tell you that. There's a lot of things going on in the Subaru world, and Dave and I are here to crack some of them wide open. Some things that I actually just saw today is pretty cool. Where we're going to start today is that we're going to go talk about a topic that is a passion project I've been working on. If any of you don't know, which I assume you don't, I'm originally from Rhode Island. I have a lot of family there, and I was there visiting family. I was there for my grandma's 90th birthday party. She's 90 years old, and I'm driving through town, and I noticed something. I'm going to put it on the screen here for everybody so you guys can all see it. I'm driving through town on this exact road. I was heading to Whalers, which is like the best brewery in all of Rhode Island. And as I was kind of making my way downtown, I saw, oh, too far. I saw this. Now, for anybody who doesn't know, this is the very old Subaru original emblem. And this is a very old sign. This is a sign that clearly has been up since they had an old Subaru dealer here. And if anybody's ever looked for dealership signs for Subaru, they're like $400 to $500. You can't find them anywhere, and the ones that you do find are new ones that either light up or they have the new LEDs or something, and they're just expensive.
Or just a banner.
Or a banner, yeah. Signs like this do not exist anymore. And what's sad is that people have obviously thrown rocks and stuff in it and like hit it and everything. Show you guys from the other side. Like the other side has some holes and damage to it, some big rocks that have gone through it. And I just can't stop thinking, what a cool sign. This sign is so amazing. I would love to have this to try to restore it, or at least like preserve what's left of it. Like this is like a piece of history that's just sitting in what is literally a dirt parking lot. So I went on a mission, and Dave, I tried my hardest to get this sign. I started calling people in town. This is where I had my big break. I turned to my right and I called the auto shop directly across the street. And I said, hey, do you guys know who owns this property with this sign? I just want to talk to somebody. And they told me that there was a law firm that owned it, and they gave me the name. So I contacted the lawyer, and after a couple phone calls trying to reach him, I finally got him. And very nice guy. I basically explained to him that we have this big community in this group and we want to save the sign and, what's it going to take? And he basically told me that he can't get rid of the sign. I know, you're upset. The way that this works with the town, from what he told me, is that if you get rid of a sign, you then lose the right to put up another sign unless you go through a bunch of hoops with the town and with the state to basically get that back. Um, Now, the one thing that is a loophole in the law is that if you replace the sign with another sign, you get to keep the signage there. So, like, if he were to ever take this down, right, they could say, oh, you can never put a sign post this close to the street again. This can no longer be a thing. So I think what we're trying to do is find a solution here. Um, I told him that, I would love to do some kind of, sponsorship or something where basically by his law firm letting us take the sign and preserve it, we would bring it to Boxerfest and show it off and basically, put up a sign saying that like this law firm helped us save this old Subaru sign and like,
And
kind
I'm
of get
sure it
people.
could be restored.
Yeah. And so he liked that idea, but he again said that the problem is he bought this parking lot for parking. But if he ever sells it to a business and they want to set up shop here, they need somewhere to put a sign. And if he loses this, they won't have it anymore. So I understand where he's coming from. I totally get it. I just think it's such a shame. I just want to save this piece of history so badly. And it's right in my hometown. I just want to go there and get it. And, I think we're going to have to play the long game on this. So while we're getting updates on canola oil, we'll also be updating you guys on this sign situation
Yeah.
and how this, works out. So, and speaking of canola oil, Dave, what is the update? What mileage are we at? How's the Baja running?
Don't have an exact mileage. Our plan is to actually update upcoming Friday. So when this podcast actually comes out, we will be posting an update of exact mileage. But as of current, I think it's somewhere in the realm of about ballpark 200 miles or so.
Nice.
Still going strong, still going fine. Has not lost a drop of oil. We've actually checked the dipstick. There's no sign of metal. And we're happy to report, as well as there is absolutely no knocking, no noise, no indication of anything.
Amazing.
And now, contingency, I should transparently say, we have agreed to make sure that we're going to keep consistent with this for up to 3,000 miles to change it out. At which point, though, during which we will be monitoring, and if need be, we may have to necessarily top off, oil as it may subsequently burn, as we all don't know, as people are guessing. We're overly confident as we put our bet in the ring and said that, hey, we're thinking it's going to go 3,000. But yeah, I think we're roughly about the 200-mile mark or so. Again, it's going to be a little bit on the slower end of things because it is kind of a shop vehicle, so it's not something that gets driven a ton. But as we are in the kind of the busier season, it is definitely getting driven more. And had a good personal friend come by the shop the other day and needed a loaner vehicle, and I loaned him the Baja, and so that's where when I got it back, I'm pretty confident. Last time I double checked, it's probably about 200 or so miles in. But we'll update everyone at the time that this podcast comes out. They'll know where it's at.
Yeah. It's a sad day because everybody under 200 miles that guessed is now out. You guys are out. It's made it 200 miles. It's still alive and kicking. So
sorry.
We will continue to keep track of this mileage and see what's going on with it. I was thinking, with this Baja, how much did that canola oil cost you?
I'll have to look at the exact numbers because we bought it through Amazon, but I think it was about $22 or so.
Dude, $22. Imagine if this ends up being like totally legit and it just runs on canola oil. Imagine how much money I just saved you on your oil changes. You're welcome. You could just run it on canola oil forever. You never have to do anything else. You can get it on
Thanks to the
Amazon.
Wade podcast.
Big jug.
And that
That's
was the first
amazing.
mistake we did make is I didn't realize the first order I made was for literally a 2-quart jug. I thought it was a 2-gallon jug. My mistake. I just misread. And so when it first showed up, I was like, that's not enough. So I then ordered the proper second jug that was bigger. But yeah, I already ordered the first bit, and I was like, well, we're gonna pour that in.
Yeah. Hey,
So we have a little bit of backup, but we're sticking to it. If she goes 3,000 miles, everyone will know. If she doesn't, well, everyone will know as well.
You can use it at the shop cookout on Friday and then scoop it into the Baja on Saturday. It's perfect.
I don't know that we'll cook with it after the fact, but
well,
we're definitely sending it to Blackstone.
Yeah, we're gonna keep you guys updated on this as we go along. We're really excited to keep moving on it and see where this all leads in the end. But yeah, maybe, just maybe, we could try to drive this thing to Boxerfest, Dave. You know what? Maybe I'll fly out there and I'll drive it to Boxerfest, and you can be the chase car. Oh man,
We do have the appropriate chase vehicle and tow vehicle if need be. So we'll have to discuss this as we go through the next couple episodes here, Pat, because I think there's definitely some potential of hey, if the Baja makes it, maybe she shows up at Boxerfest.
I just got a visual of a yellow Baja with the whole back seat filled with canola oil jugs. Oh man. Well, we're gonna move on because I could talk about canola oil in the Baja all day. Subaru is usually known for either their boxer for racing engines, or known for off-road, or known for whatever Subaru delves into. But what we have is Car and Driver has actually gone and taken a BRZ, and they made a BRZ Wilderness with the blessing from Subaru, which is actually such a cool project. This is it here, and just look at that car. That thing is so amazing.
Bravo. Now, I can't tell, are those like just light beams in the back, or are those light whips in the back?
So it looks like it's literally 2 lights mounted to the roof rack that are just shooting beams up to the ceiling, like 2 flashlights.
Okay.
But as you can see, it looks like they've taken off the front bumper. They've replaced it with a metal, off-road bumper. It's got that shielding in the front for like rocks and
better approach angle.
Yeah, that too. It's lifted obviously with off-road wheels and off-road tires. They put these light bars on there. I mean, this thing just looks gnarly. And if I was in Mad Max, this is what I would want right here. This would be so sick.
Now I'm curious, is it still rear-wheel drive?
So Subaru kept it rear-wheel drive.
Okay.
I believe that's what I read here, is that they wanted to keep it rear wheel. And the one thing that Subaru had said is that the only guideline was that they did not want to change the stock engine. So this thing runs a completely stock engine in it.
Okay.
And they were able to kind of drop a lot of weight from this thing. So they pulled the heated seats, they pulled the parts of the dash, they pulled the carpeting out of this thing. And so they lost a couple hundred pounds just by making all these different changes. So right here, they lost 21 pounds.
That's pretty good.
Switching the battery, pulling the seats and basically everything else. Here you can see they were starting to get that prepped for the front bumper they were going to put on. Suspension, tires, wheels, just this thing has the whole off-road package.
Yeah.
But yeah, what's so amazing is that this thing really is like a true off-road BRZ. Like they did such a good job with it that I could see this thing actually competing in like, some kind of rally race or something. Like this thing is so cool.
Yeah,
What's really cool is that they mentioned in the article that they were granted access to this mine that is like a mile strip that normally you can only access it with four-wheeled, quads and dirt bikes and stuff like that. And they do tours, but they actually gave them access with the BRZ to come and do a trip down the mine, and that's where they got to do their photo shoot, which is really cool.
that's really cool.
So yeah, this is a really cool project, and I mean, I just love that Car and Driver chose a BRZ to go and do this with. Like they could
Well,
have really chosen anything else, but I guess this makes the most sense, right?
it's an interesting comparison, or juxtaposition, if you will. I think that's the right word. We, as a shop, we actually have a lifted Subaru Outback that we built. It's a 2005. It has a 3-liter, so a little bit different, comparatively than this, but I think they're in the same kind of mindset of that kind of we went into it going, well, while the Outback might have the, not to say the, I never like to say the worst, but the less desirable approach and departure angles comparatively of every other Subaru model in a lot of ways. And naturally, they tried to increase that in a lot of ways. You could tell with this build, by removing the front bumpers, things like that. That's kind of a natural progression of a lot of even some of our clientele that are really pushing the boundaries with their Subarus, particularly the Outback platform that we chose to kind of build around, because we see the potential in that, it has considerably the most amount of room, which is kind of a misconception between the Outback and Forester debate. But for spatial aspects, as far as sleeping in the back, you're far better off in an Outback than you are a Forester, and you're just going to get a little bit more room.
True,
Uh,
true.
and that's the kind of the misconception of people's, oh, well, the Forester is certainly a little bit taller roof height, so it depends on kind of what you're trying to fit in there, but it becomes a length issue. So that's always kind of that trade-off. I mean, you would also not be sleeping in the back of a Porsche Cayenne,
Yeah, yeah.
same kind of thing. Unless you're on the shorter spectrum, which I can admit to. So not to shame anybody, but I think there was a really clear vision with this build, and I applaud Car and Driver in a lot of ways for trying to do something outside the box, so to speak. And I think that while some might misconstrue and say, oh, they're just trying to get, views and accolades, and maybe they're also just trying to see what can be done. And that kind of coincides with our Baja experiment in some ways, is seeing, hey, why not? And we have nothing to lose to a point.
Yeah, I also like how tasteful it is. The front bumper isn't like gaudy. It's only a 2-inch lift with like a really nice set of dark wheels. The
Mm-hmm.
off-road tires. Like it just is like a very clean build, and I gotta applaud Car and Driver for keeping it so simple while getting all of this out of it.
But it also
Just
took a lot of work. I can see just even from the small pictures that are in this article, there was a lot of work that went into that. Even just that front bumper that you're stopped over. That was a lot of fabrication and time. And as humbly mechanics, there's a famous saying: you don't pay me for the time it took me to do the job. You pay me for the time it took me to learn how to do the job in that amount of time.
yeah. Yeah, and you could tell like they have this all clamped up, like they're custom welding this whole bumper, because like they don't sell stuff like this for the new BRZs. It's just crazy.
Absolutely.
But like, how cool is it that Car and Driver just was like, you know what, we're doing this, and they got the car. I actually, you know what this makes me think of? The trivia question last week about the clamshell, the Subaru that looks like a clamshell. It's got the same front end now. It comes to a point, just like the clamshell. But yeah, man. I mean, I could see at like Boxer Fest in the off-road area where they park all the off-road cars. I could see if somebody rolled up in something like this, it would turn heads. Like
This
Now,
better be there. I'm gonna put my statement down on record and say, Car and Driver. If anyone is watching this from Car and Driver, or anyone who follows Car and Driver, they deserve to get some pressure to show up and bring this out to the event. I think that would definitely, like you said, turn some heads.
yeah. Oh my gosh. So the lights on the roof rack that are the laser beams, they have a button that they put alien lasers in the car. That's amazing. And it's called the
We're
Out
still
BR.
trying to figure out how to put a flux capacitor in one of our cars. So
Yeah, that's so awesome. Dude, I love this. I mean, just what a cool concept. Look at
I just
that.
saw a stat about with the rooftop tent. Yeah, because you're not sleeping in the back of the BRZ.
Yeah.
All right.
I have to tell you guys, Jeremy Stegman, who has been helping us with all of our shorts, he sent this to me, and
Yes.
I read halfway through it, looking at it and checking the pictures out, and thought it was a really cool topic. And I just saw this picture for the first time, and this is hilarious.
That is amazing.
The idea to jump the
That
car with
might
the
be
tent
my
fully
new
open.
wallpaper.
It says it was received with disdain by other tent makers. However, the folks at C6 Outdoor told us to send it.
Good for them.
This is so cool. What a cool article.
I'm sure the photo shortly after that was probably not so great.
Hey, this is the only one that matters. Oh, man. Well, it's cool that Car and Driver is picking up with Subaru and kind of looking at this BRZ as a fun project. This kind of leads me into our next thing, as it says 2025 Toyota RAV4 over the Subaru here, is that Subaru and Toyota have started what I would call getting into bed together in the EV world. I think that they are working on a lot of different projects right now and some things that are up and coming. I'm just going to share this small article right here. Electric cars come into Subaru and Toyota. So, I mean, there really is like kind of a future, I believe, between the two of them making electric cars. Basically, what I found is that there's a speculative, actually, not only Subaru and Toyota, but also Suzuki EV collaboration. I think that really Toyota and Subaru are going to be leading this, though. And they're co-developing multiple EV SUVs on Toyota's platform under Subaru's badge, slated for launch around 2026 with production at Subaru's Yajima plant in Japan. Subaru's Solterra, which rebadged the Toyota BZ4X, is the first fruits of the partnership using Toyota battery and e-axle technology plus Subaru developed all-wheel drive system. Right there, I mean, Subaru's been making all-wheel drive systems for so long, and they're so good. And I think that like every company always comes to them for all-wheel drive problems. It's just so funny to me because I've seen multiple companies that they always mention Subaru is helping them with like designing all-wheel drive. So, um, but yeah, I mean, Toyota has gotten very good with batteries. The Prius has been around forever at this point. They've gotten so good with it. The mileage is insane. And a lot of teasers recently have hinted at a couple SUVs coming down the pipeline, including in this article. They show a couple options that are kind of missing from the lineup, along with cars that do exist already. And so these are the Toyota counterparts. But the thing with Subaru is that they're helping, and it's under the Subaru badge, but Subaru is just starting to make these EV cars, whereas Toyota has been kind of pushing these out the door already. But as we talked about, the new Subaru coming out that we were talking about that was electric, they have this new design where they have these plastic shields that go all the way almost from the front bumper around the whole wheel well, which is like such a crazy design. I've never seen anything like that.
I'm trying to bring back the kind of Outback look.
Yeah, I'll just say I'm just not a big fan of the black plastic fenders. You know, I think that to an extent they look nice, but like when it starts extending into the front of the car and onto the hood and stuff, it's just kind of insane. They're making a lot of these front ends plastic nowadays. I've seen. I had a Chevy pickup at my work the other day, which normally these pickup trucks all have the big heavy metal front bumper, you know, like the big pickup trucks like the 2500s and stuff.
Mhm.
And one of them came into my shop and I banged on it and it was plastic and I was like, no. So
And then there's multiple sides to it. From a standpoint, there's the argument that, well, okay, it's cheap for the manufacturers, and that's surely, in some parts the case. Um, at the same time, there's also a safety aspect to where we used to build cars with, metal, you know, and the same car nowadays compared to the same car of yesterday, the old car of yesterday would crash through 12 brick walls in a row, and the current car would crash through one and a half maybe brick walls and then stop, but the front of the car is going to be destroyed. Now, if the driver survives the latter, that's better. But at the same token, to my kind of original point, I think it's up to the manufacturers to start prioritizing a cost expenditure to where, okay, not to say we're all going to crash cars, but fender benders, things like that. Why do bumpers cost the things that they do without buying something from overseas? Why can't you buy a bumper from a manufacturer that is OEM, is properly going to fit, and not break the bank? I mean, I get paint costs and things like that, but
these bumper prices have gone through the roof. It's actually insane. I can't even believe how much it is to just replace a front bumper. Like it's so crazy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I wonder if part of this is that it's easier to design these cars for the other manufacturer, you know, like I wonder because it's plastic there that it makes it easy for Toyota to design their headlight and Subaru to design their headlight, and then they just trim the plastic fender to the shape of their own headlight. So now instead of redesigning all the panels around it, now they're just cutting the plastic differently and it's saving them on production. You know, like that's the kind of thing I could see going on with
Sure.
designs like this.
I also have another thought that, and not to be skeptical or cynical, that's the word, where Toyota and Subaru's partnership, there's always that mutual kind of overlap where there's objectives from both sides, both parties. And from Subaru's standpoint, there's no question, as you kind of hinted to earlier, Toyota has been the pioneer in a lot of ways. Not to say they were the first, to give credit where credit's due to Honda, but Toyota was kind of the pioneer and has really broken away from the masses as far as their hybrid technology and utilizing that kind of co-efficiency. Where Toyota, at last I heard, was really doubling down on hydrogen technology and saying kind of no to electric. I would not be far-fetched to think that part of this partnership envelops that, okay, Toyota gets to kind of experiment to some extent with Subaru as a brand and go, hey, how is this going to play out with the whole electric market? And we want to have a stake in this, but we also don't want to put all our eggs in one basket.
Yeah. You know, it's so interesting because this is all coming like full circle. So there's a lot of car companies that get into relationships with other car companies and they all try to design the next gen technology and what's coming. And you know, and there's like I had one literally today in my shop, an Infiniti QX30. Do you know what that car is?
Mm-hmm.
It is a literal repaneled Mercedes GLA 250. The cluster is the same, the engine is the same, the interior is the same. It's literally just a refendered and rebumpered Mercedes. And what's crazy is when I called the Infiniti dealer looking for parts, they actually told me that I had to call Mercedes to get parts for this thing. I've never heard of that before. But like that's part of the deal, right? Is that by Infinity, I asked the guy too. He said Infinity has no other cars affiliated with Mercedes. It's just this one model. And what's crazy is that when they do this, right, Infinity makes one car with Mercedes, and all of a sudden they get access to all of Mercedes technology and how they built this car, and they get to see how they make vehicles. And it just opens up a whole window for Infinity to start learning how to build things the way that Mercedes does. It's the same way that Toyota Supras are now they're just BMWs in a basically a Toyota Supra body shell. So these cars and manufacturers, it's kind of crazy that they're all jumping, for the newest tech and trying to learn from each other and what each other are doing.
Well, in the history, there's always been inner partnerships. Like you always have, you had early back in the early 90s, you had Toyota partnered with GM to actually make the Geo Prism and Metro. I think it was a Prism, sorry. But it was effectively a Toyota Corolla in drag as a Geo. And well, that was the early days of Toyota trying to get a foothold into the US market. They were maybe trying to learn a thing or two about how the distribution aspect in the US market worked. Well, what better way than partner with a US company and go, we're going to sell a car together. There's always, again, there's wins and losses. I remember years ago, I think it was like the Daimler Chrysler kind of endeavor.
Yep.
Where famously that happened. I forget if that was the exact historical incident, but there was a incident similar to that where effectively the counterpart went into the other counterpart's factory after they were, granted access and they were partnered together, and they quickly realized they could not replicate. Actually, I think that was the Toyota incident actually with Toyota and GM. But GM walked into Toyota and was like, we cannot replicate and do what you do. That's not how we build cars for our market. And for not for better or for worse, but that's just the reality of it. They realized that was a difference, and they took what they could, and they wanted to see how successful Toyota had been up to that point and learn from that. And reciprocally, Toyota probably wanted to say, hey, how do we learn something from you guys and go, how do we get into the US market? Because we're very new to it. And so there's always pros and cons into the Toyota and Subaru market. You have to figure, well, as you hinted at the beginning of this, well, Toyota has always had all-wheel drive systems for a long time has always had all-wheel drive systems. Humbly, they've never been able to be anywhere near as good as Subarus. Well, maybe part of this agreement is now Toyotas in the future are going to come with a symmetrical all-wheel drive system to a sense. And now they can license and use that. It's the same reason Dodge still uses the same old Mercedes keys, but that's another story because they can't afford to make other keys, but they're still using old technology because they inherited it in a sense.
Alrighty. Dave is having some connection issues and my computer just exploded and came back. So a little bit of a hiccup there, but I just wanted to continue on. I'm going to walk us through the last couple segments here and we'll get this all sorted. The thing with Toyota and with all these companies going to hydrogen is that, even Toyota talking about making water engines, everybody's trying to find the next clean solution. What's going to be the next big thing that is going to basically take out using fuel and basically try to make things as clean as possible while not sacrificing power. While I did like reading about the water engine that basically Toyota was kind of pushing, which I'll share a little picture here of what's going on with that. Let me see. So basically, there's this article that they're trying to put together a water engine, dual injection to outperform hydrogen, but hydrogen exhausts itself as water. So in a sense, right, even though you're putting hydrogen in, you're still only getting water out of the engine at the end of it. So to me, clean wise, I think that they're pretty much the same, but I think that water obviously is more accessible. And the problem with hydrogen is that it's so small. The molecules of hydrogen, they've never been able to successfully contain hydrogen until recently. Because of how small the molecules are, you have to like really seal it to make sure that nothing gets out. And the problem is, you think about oil leaking from your valve cover gaskets, and you think about fuel leaks that your car has. I mean, leaks happen, and with hydrogen, that's not really something you want to happen, because it's something that's very not explosive, but hydrogen is something that has been a danger since we discovered it. And so basically, Toyota has this idea. And one thing I found really interesting was that there is another company that has been designing engines for construction vehicles, JCB. I've been following them for a couple of years. I read a nice article on what they were doing. And the cool thing of what they said is that they are building engines that are specifically for hydrogen. Because the initial concept was that they were trying to take a gas engine and they were trying to modify it to take hydrogen. But then they finally realized that that made no sense. It wasn't working. And they had to totally start from scratch to design something that could run on hydrogen and put it in the R&D and figure it all out. Then the next hurdle was that for these big construction vehicle companies, they didn't want to put these engines in because they had to do too much modification to these, tens of thousands of dollars of construction equipment. It's like, why go and alter your vehicle to take a hydrogen engine and then have to build it that way? And it just became too much of a hassle. So they turned the whole industry for them into making direct bolt-in hydrogen engines for these cat vehicles and construction equipment. And that's how they got these construction companies to start putting these engines in, is because they were straight drop in, super easy. And that's kind of how they've been moving their business, which I think is so cool. And I think that if the car companies start doing this and making engines that are essentially drop-ins for older cars and things like that, people will start buying hydrogen engines and putting them in their 90s Civic and their 2000 Civic and things like that. But I think more realistically, we're looking at the technology here and about how hydrogen and water engines are starting to become more prevalent than ever. And I think that there is really a place that's starting to cater to things like this. So I just thought that was cool as we were talking about Subaru and Toyota teaming up for their little thing that they're putting together here. So the next point here that I wanted to go over with you guys, a little bit of a tech talk. I'm not going to go too in depth on it because I don't have Dave, and I'm sure he wanted to talk about this. So the Subaru DCCD system, it is the driver controlled center differential, which is something that the STIs have offered for quite a long time. And it's something that went away, and people really like this feature. And the thing that I have up here is from Subaru, the multi-mode, which basically explains that it allows the center differential locking of the WRX STI to be dialed and adjusted in handling. It adjusts both an electromagnetic multi-plate transfer clutch and mechanical locking of a limited slip differential to distribute torque to the front and rear wheels. Auto mode identifies the ideal power distribution and changing conditions, whilst auto keeps more power up front for increased traction. Auto negative transfers more power to the rear for tight cornering. And the 6-step manual power mode locks in the driver's favorite handling characteristics. So I've always thought these were a great idea. I always thought that being able to push power to the front or to the rear or to distribute it differently can basically cause different driving styles. And the biggest thing about that is that we talked about it in the very first episode of this podcast, is that there was a myth that you could turn all the power to the rear and make Subaru's rear wheel drive, but that's not really how it works. It's more of like a 60-40 or a 30, like a 30-70 like split, like however they put the power out. And so that's kind of how that comes to be. The cool thing about this is that it's not just a STI feature that was put in to be like cosmetic or, part of the trim. I think the functionality of it is something that you would see a rally driver use, something that allows you to adjust on the fly, make changes to the car for cornering, things like that. So I just kind of did a write up here of what is this system. It's a center diff with clutch packs you can manually lock or unlock, shifting torque front to rear, auto and manual modes, adjust bias depending on the conditions. How it works: in auto mode, the system adapts torque to road conditions, either going positive or negative, for sportier handling. And then in manual mode, the driver dials in specific lock percentages for comfort, grip, or drift, locking the clutch packs from 0% to direct 100%. So, in theory, you could put 100% of power to the rear and make it a drift car, but I think that it's not really a realistic feature for these STIs. I just don't think it's ever been a realistic feature. I don't think it makes sense. What this does is grip on slippery and uneven surfaces. Locking the center diff gives predictable instant traction, vital for rallying and snowy back roads. As far as performance, a rear biased manual setting turns the STI into a razor sharp corner machine, letting drivers modulate slides with throttle. And durability is locking clutches, reduces slippage, and heat under hard acceleration, extending drivetrain life, which we all love. Being from the Subaru community, anytime you have stuff that's going to break, you want to extend the lifespan, you want it to keep going. So that's really a big piece of it there. I think the DCCD system is really just a fantastic feature, and it's one of the things that Subaru has been so good about for so long. They nailed it right out of the gate, and I think that a lot of people love this feature and would love for it to come back. And like I said, I know Dave would definitely want to chime in on this, but unfortunately, he's out of here for right now, so we will see when he gets his computer back up and running. Side note, we're supposed to be having Trenton Teeter on for Friday. Today is Wednesday, so 2 days from now, we're going to have him. And we'll be able to get that episode out for next week. So stay tuned for that. Now for what is our favorite segment of the day, the WRX-Files. I did some digging, and I have to say, first and foremost, just so everyone knows, I love Subaru. I really do. Subaru has been my entire life. It is, ever since I was in high school, and even before that, I was always looking for them. But when I was in high school, and a buddy of mine, his dad had a legacy wagon that basically he had it all tuned up. It was such a nice car, and he would fill the back seats with like these big boxes and stuff. And, he was an old guy. And so he used to walk people in this sleeper legacy that he had. And it was really cool. And so that was kind of my first introduction to Subaru was, my buddy had the GF8 wagon. And so that wagon was a really cool car as well. And, I started driving manual, and I got kind of into the Subaru world. And, so when I do these WRX-Files, I hope that you guys know that it's all in love. I really, there's things that Subaru has done that are amazing, and there's things that they've done that, like every manufacturer they've done. You look at Volkswagen and their whole deal with Dieselgate and everything else. It happens. And today I just wanted to put that forward because we're going to be talking about a couple Subaru scandals that happened and diving in on those. I'm not going to go too deep, but just a brief once over on just a couple things that happened in Subaru's history back in 17 and 18. And then we will be on to Trenton Teeter next week. So the first thing that happened was back in 2017, there was a scandal out of Japan that happened with Subaru. Subaru admitted that it had uncertified trainee workers performing final vehicle inspections at Gunma and Ota plants, stamping documents illegally for decades. This has been going on for a long time. The recall affected roughly 395,000 to 400,000 vehicles, spurring top-level changes and cost Subaru 20 billion yen, which is $177 million. CEO Yasuyuki and executives returned part of their salaries until March 2018 as a gesture of accountability. And basically, I found the statements that Subaru put out on this issue. And I'm just going to post, I'll just pop it up here for you just so you guys can see the first one. It's statement concerning findings of internal investigation on final inspection of Subaru-made vehicles. This basically says, oops, yep, this is true. Final vehicle inspections, the regulations were not met. Basically taking accountability, which Subaru is very good at. This to me is one of those things that I think has been going on for a long time. Everybody wants to beat regulations. Everybody wants cheap work. It's just a matter of the cycle of life. And I think that Subaru had maybe gotten away with this early on. And as the years went on and regulations changed, I think that people were not really looking at Subaru thinking that this was still ongoing, or maybe didn't realize that this was a thing. And so the fact that this came out was, it was nice that they took the accountability and kind of put that forward. But all of a sudden in 2018, right as they're recovering from this 2017 scandal, they have fuel economy and emissions falsification. So Subaru reported to the MLIT that it had not used non-compliant testing conditions. Examples are wrong speeds or humidity as valid results during sample tests. This misconduct occurred between December 2012 and November 2017, impacting 903 vehicles and triggering a government raid and follow-up probe. The scandal led to the resignation of CEO Yoshinaga and full internal overhaul. So the MLIT doesn't mess around, and they've clearly got Subaru's number from 2017, 2018. Honestly, any manufacturer that's messing around with emissions that gets called for it, you deserve it, because if you look at Volkswagen and what they've gone through, and Toyota, and like, you just don't mess with the government and the emissions and all these things. So I just think that it's such a clear cut thing that it's like, you can do anything you want, but when you touch emissions, they're gonna know and they're gonna find out. So I think that it's a very interesting thing that Subaru does with their brand. And I'm actually going to post up the other Subaru's I'll call this their second oopsie. Let me see. There you go. So this is, let me make sure I got the right one here. Finding of internal Subaru vehicles. So this was the one for the inspections. And then basically this article is for improper conduct during final vehicle inspections. So they had to put out two of these back to back, 17 and 18, where basically they said, oops, sorry, our bad. We have been doing this bad thing for the last 10 years. And then basically the next year, they were like, oops, our bad. This other thing we've been doing for the last 10 years is, still going on. So I think all in all, Subaru kind of got a slap on the wrist with this, having to do a couple, not a couple, 400,000 recalls and, paying $177 million. It's a lot of money. But I think in this grand scheme of things, coming from Fuji Heavy Industries and Subaru being as big as it is, $177 million is a pretty big slap on the wrist to basically get away with together 20 years of falsifying information and basically having untrained or uncertified employees working on vehicles and doing inspections. That's a pretty big deal, I would say. So I just thought this was an interesting topic to dive into. I think Subaru is such an interesting company, and whenever things like this happen, it ends up in the, on the internet and you hear about it, but it never really gets dived into. So I just wanted to do that for you guys today. That's all I got for you. I know that this was kind of a weird episode just because Dave was here and then he wasn't, but like I said, Trenton Teeter is coming on. It is confirmed. It is happening finally. He just put out a great ad recently about kind of putting a customer on blast, which I thought was hilarious because of the way that they film their videos over there. And he has great content. He is always putting up great stuff. So please check him out. And we will see him next week. And hopefully, depending on Dave's situation, we'll have him back for the next episode as well. So we'll figure that out in the meantime. But I really appreciate everyone sticking with us. And we will catch you on the next one.